I'm Piercy Janwell, and you're listening to Unsubscribed. Every episode, I sit down with business leaders to help you question everything you thought you knew about marketing. If you enjoy this show, please do subscribe and leave a review on YouTube or your favorite podcast player. Now, on to this episode.
Awesome. All right. Coming to you live from a very special edition of the Unsubscribe podcast. We're here in Las Vegas for the 2023 Adobe Summit, and I'm joined with none other than the Paul Wilson. It's incredible to have you here.
This feels like
Paul.
a long overdue conversation.
Honestly,
that has
started
a decade in the making.
Many years ago at a Marketo user group in Ottawa, of all places.
Right.
Yeah. It's a small world.
Many moons ago. Yeah. I think it's great. It's good to be back in Summit. It's good to be back in person after 4 years and getting the opportunity to connect like this.
It's such a meeting point, right? Every year where you get together, it always feels like a big reunion.
It's like a high school reunion every year, and you see people, you're like, oh, look, they've lost weight.
Yeah. I hope people said that about me. I don't think so. I got 2 kids now. It's great to be here, and after hiatus too. We just wrapped up the keynote session. What did you think?
Every year when I see the way that Adobe looks at the world, I think that the challenges that marketing operations professionals face just explode. The new capabilities and it's great to see all the great new tools, but those new capabilities always drive more work for operations professionals, because what is slick and easy on stage takes the support of those operations teams. So the capabilities, the AI capabilities that Adobe is rolling out, the stuff that they showed with the ability to take, the image of a tent, just sort of a flat image of a tent sitting on a bare floor, and the capabilities of the Adobe Sensei engine to take that image and you can drop it into literally any background. The lighting adapts, the colors adapt for the light, like the whole capability.
That was amazing. And they said the whole presentation.
Yeah.
The whole presentation, or at least that one slide, was made all from Firefly.
Yeah, right.
Which is their new image generator.
Yeah. And I think that it's just all part of the ongoing future state of content, and how content, be it image content or text content, all of the inputs around the capabilities that machine learning can do to bring content much farther along, much easier. That image, when they were able to take the final image of the tent in situ where it was on the campground, and then immediately see the various display ad formats, the mobile device formats, cool. All of it.
Cool integration.
Yeah.
I noticed a few times, and I thought it was interesting because it seemed like they definitely did this on purpose, but they talked about the AI as a co-pilot.
Right.
It was never, the AI is going to do this. There was definitely a focus around the co-pilot, and that marketers are going to have some part to play in this future.
They never tell you that Skynet is going to be able to do it all. Skynet's going to be your partner. No, I believe that. I mean, I think that if machine learning engines are just being designed to speak to other machine learning engines, you don't need the human curation factor. But the human dynamic is still not something that that machine learning systems can comprehend today.
So we were talking a little bit about this yesterday, and then I had a meeting with the CEO at Revenue Pulse, Joe, last night, and he's running a bunch of events here at Summit. Some Marketo sessions, a mixology session, a dessert session. And he said to come up with these ideas, he asked ChatGPT, about what he thought that it should do. And what blew my mind, because I agree with you, I think my opinion on AI is that humans know other humans and we can connect best with others, and those nuances are going to be hard for the computer. But what blew my mind that Joe told me is that the events that ChatGPT recommended that he ran were the highest registered events, which is wild.
Well, I can understand the context of that, because although I'm sure Joe's a brilliant guy, and so are you,
Yeah.
and
Joe, if you're watching this,
but the available scope of information that a machine learning engine has at its fingertips
right?
just far exceeds our capabilities as generalists. I think humans are generalists. We need to be able to deal with, getting the kids out of bed and to school, and whether or not the links are properly configured in the tokens in a Marketo email. The scope of what we need to be able to do and react to is tremendous, and it's got the human variable. A machine learning engine sees data all day long and can use algorithmic views to say, well, obviously this data is more consumed than that data, so I'm going to recommend these events.
Right.
So it has that
Right.
whole ecosystem, but it doesn't have to process the same thing that we do as humans. So
Yeah, absolutely. I feel, I don't know if you feel this way, but I go on Twitter now and all I read is like, here's 10 great things you can do with AI
Yep.
for marketers. Here, there's an explosion, not just ChatGPT, but a bunch of other tools that people have already packaged.
right.
For me, I feel a little bit overwhelmed of there seems
Yeah.
like so much to learn. I like to be someone who stays ahead of things, and both of us are very early in CRM and marketing automation, and I feel we're on the cusp of this next thing. How are you kind of playing with these tools, experimenting,
Right.
and do you feel the same way I do?
Yeah, I think I really fundamentally believe when you look at the speed of technology transformation in a short period of time, let's just say 20 years. 20 years is not a long time. I mean, it feels like a long time if you're 22 years old, but
Yeah.
20 years is not a long period of time. And the speed of technology change in these last 20 years is just breathtaking. And I kind of feel like our technology society and we as technologists feel like ChatGPT came from nowhere. But the reality is it's kind of like the middle-aged actor who's been acting for 20 years and not getting great parts, and then all of a sudden gets that part. And everyone's response is, where's this guy been? And he's like, I've been doing
Right.
TV commercials,
Yeah.
I've been doing stage plays. It's been around and it's
Yeah.
been growing. And GPT has hit that tipping point where we're all paying attention now, because it has matured to a place where we can see practical applications for it. So for me, the next phase is, it's not going to go away now that it's hit that inflection point. What do we as marketing operations, marketing technologists do to adapt our environments to now take advantage of this new framework of content that is going to come our way? So that's the way I look at it. I'm totally mystified that it's here, but now my question is, okay, how do we operationalize it?
What do we do with
Yeah.
it? How do we become the co-pilots?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen over the years AI, I mean, people were, even in the MarTech space, calling their applications AI
Right.
powered.
Yep.
And usually it sounded great, but you tried it and it was usually pretty lackluster. Like,
Right.
I can't think of any great applications where I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
But it feels to me now like ChatGPT is at a level where it's good enough that it is mind-blowing
Right.
to the point where you use it once and it's such an experience. It's
Right.
almost like going on the internet for the first time.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. And I think that it's that that transformative moment that we're all kind of feeling, and the algorithm's ability to humanize the results that we get, I think, is what we're seeing as different. Because you basically, it's a hyperactive Google search. I mean, you're
Right.
searching the internet for content. And instead of it being a response that's a bunch of links to relevant articles, what the engine is doing is it's saying, okay, you want to know about how to raise a puppy? It's going to synthesize the best results like you would in a Google search. And instead of just letting you go and consume the results, it's got a framework to synthesize that and give you those suggested 8 best steps to raise a puppy.
It's amazing. Our development team at Knak is already using it. And I don't know why, but I felt like they would be a little resistant to it, of like, well, we write the code. But I feel out of everyone, they've almost embraced it the most.
Sure.
Like the quickest. They've told me if there's a bug, they can put it into ChatGPT and say find the bug.
Wow.
And it's accurate and it's saving them
Right.
days of time already.
Well, your engineering team has discovered it. Every high school teenager has also
Right,
discovered
right,
it.
yeah. I'm never writing an essay again.
Right? And what's very interesting is the idea of what digital literacy will mean. Because I think, to your point, where humans were problem solvers in code before, now it's optimization and the ability to move some of that, for lack of a, this is not meant to be disrespectful of coders, but that grunt work of fixing bugs. To me, it's very similar if I look, from a marketer's lens of, the random ad hoc pieces of content that BDRs are trying to fling out into the world to get some sort of a response. Like that content, that idea of a BDR, knowing that they want to send a note to Pierce, so they'll go on LinkedIn and see if there's anything new in Pierce's feed.
Right.
Nothing new there. Go to Knak, nothing new in the Knak feed. Well, maybe there's something new, interesting in the general email space. Oh, look, there's an interesting, send you the piece of content saying, hey, Pierce, have you seen this? Would you have time next Tuesday for a call? Like, some of that grunt work related to content is going to start being generated automatically.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now, how do I empower the whole company with AI? Like, do we get everyone in the company licenses to ChatGPT and do training around it, or
Well, you wouldn't want people
how
sharing licenses, right?
Yeah, no, of course not.
Well, I think that's
The
a really
AI will come after me.
that's an interesting question. Like, I think that the applications shouldn't only fit the available technology solutions today. So it may be that in your support organization, because ChatGPT at the moment, the OpenAI framework only applies to content available on the internet up to like 2021. So it doesn't know the context of what your support team needs to say to someone when they've got an issue and they need to have it addressed. So, your support team probably isn't yet ready for AI. But when the OpenAI framework can adapt and include not only internet content, but specific intranet type content from your CRM that shows all the case histories to be able to provide a response that's more contextual. That's where I think the ability to deploy AI across the business is going to expand. What I would say in this fiscal year is you need to incorporate it into the plan. You need to start saying, okay, where can machine learning content improve customer experience and business development? And then start making sure that those teams have the operational capacity to leverage machine learning content and apply it to the business. I would also say if you start doing that, be really transparent to the customers and prospects that you're talking to say, hey, this case suggestion brought to you by Knak GPT. And, was this good? Like, ensure that there's some feedback. But I think that businesses, particularly in your size of organization, as you're scaling and going out into the market and growing, you absolutely need to plan to adapt that into the way that you go to market.
I feel we could talk all day about the AI stuff. I would like to switch gears a little bit because I think you have such an interesting story of your career and where you started and what you're doing now. I'd love to just hear more about your experience and how you ended up, as a VP Marketing Ops at OneTrust.
Sure. I think it's an interesting, because it's mine, I think it's an interesting journey just because it's not curated, it's not crafted, So again, going back to the idea that 20 years ago is not that far, if I roll back the clock 20 years ago, I was in sales. I was helping build inside sales organizations for a division of Nortel. And in that organization at that time, we were using Hoovers as a website where you would go and try to get information about companies that you wanted to talk to. We had very rudimentary CRM systems that were available to us. And, I started bumping into the challenge of how to use information and technology to enable the inside sales organization that I was growing to be able to be more authentic and connect to the people that they were trying to connect to and have those conversations start.
Right.
And, from those early days being in sales and building sales organizations, I morphed into being that salesperson who was always trying to get the person running the CRM to make changes, to update things, to add a field, to give me more data, to do things. And that need pushed me onto sort of the other side of the formula. So I was
that must have been very early days in the CRM space.
We're talking 2001, 2002.
Wow.
So I had a Salesforce instance in 2001, an early free trial of Salesforce. And sales was an accidental career for me. I really enjoyed explaining things to people. So I was sort of an educator salesperson. I was not a typical type A salesperson. And so helping train salespeople was definitely a great role for me, and it was a good fit. And I started being the inside salesperson or inside sales manager who also was the CRM administrator. So in a small startup in Ottawa called DNA 13, I was owning Salesforce. Then we started using a marketing automation tool called vTrends, which was then bought by Silverpop, which was then bought by IBM. But we had vTrends, and then we went to HubSpot, and I was tinkering with how to incorporate the two platforms of marketing automation and CRM.
So you were in the right place at the right time
with the right problem.
Salesforce, right problem. Yeah, there's a good problem. You were implementing that at a company.
Yep.
Then what happened?
Yeah, so the company that I was working for, DNA 13, was acquired. And I kind of took that as my opportunity to leap. And, the expression leap and the net will appear happened for me. So I decided that I wanted to do CRM consulting. I wanted to be a for-hire Salesforce administrator. And the company that acquired us hired me to migrate the Salesforce instance that we had into their larger Salesforce instance. And then I stuck around selling blocks of hours to them to
Nice.
help them in their CRM implementation. It gave me the opportunity to be in a larger implementation of Salesforce and hone my skills on what those challenges looked like. And then, I just started getting, by word of mouth, additional customers. So I was a Salesforce consultant for many years. And then in around 2011, I had an opportunity to really focus in on marketing automation and CRM. So I did a couple of HubSpot consulting gigs, a couple of Eloqua gigs, a couple of migrations.
And when you did that, when you saw marketing automation for the first time, did it feel like the first time you saw CRM? Were there similarities there? Or, I'd imagine you were going along, you were getting new customers, you were doing a lot with Salesforce. What prompted you to get into marketing automation?
What was really interesting is that was, kind of the early days of website telemetry. So we had the kinds of tools that could tell you when a specific company was on your website. I mean,
Right.
this was
Yeah.
mystical capabilities.
I remember we used to use like Leadlander
Yep.
at one of the companies, and I remember the salespeople loved that.
And so there were these new technologies that were coming from the marketing side. And Salesforce as a platform was like opportunities and accounts. I mean, there's leads and other things. But
Right.
like the whole focus was revenue. And the marketing tools looked at the idea of the ability to see behaviors. And how do you then translate, oh, well, these people seem more interested. So it started adding shape to the funnel.
Right.
And the ability to say, okay, well, telling the sales organization, these companies, you may think you want to go after these 100 companies, but if I look at the companies who have been on our website for the last 30 days, only 3 of those 100 have been here. So yeah, you can keep going and knocking on those doors, but you should look at the companies who are already here. And so that was that dawn of inbound marketing, and HubSpot
Right.
led that drive. So SEO optimization, and so that whole lens of what the website was capable of, and how do you then translate it into nurturing that engagement to people actually talking to a salesperson. So the technology exploded that whole top end of the funnel world. And I mean, let's go back to our conversation earlier about where Adobe sits today. Like the trillions of touch points of data that are available that companies today can leverage, putting them into a data warehouse to then point a machine learning algorithm to be able to say, all right, well, here's the next best piece of content for you. Here's what the salesperson should talk to you next. Like, little did I know 10 years ago that was the dawn of where we would get to today. But all of the technology challenges that I've encountered in the last 12 years of technology change has really just been a part of the landscape getting broader. And I've had the great opportunity to, in my career, advance to larger organizations, like getting to work at Marketo, getting to go through the Marketo acquisition into Adobe and that adaptation. So another migration project.
I'd love to dig in more there, just what that experience was like working at Marketo during what must have been an exciting time having Adobe acquire the company.
Well, it was a really, again, I can't say that my journey has been a curated journey. It was really just the great chances of the people that I've met and the people I get to know. I developed a kind of an esoteric skill set around Microsoft Dynamics as a CRM with Marketo.
Yes.
And
It's a rare breed of consultant who knows that.
And so having that skill set was fortuitous for me because the partners organization at Marketo realized that more partners needed to understand how to support Dynamics customers. And so I joined the partners organization to, help develop more partners that had that skill set. Helped further the certification programs and everything related to the partners team. And parallel with that, Marketo itself was undergoing a transformation of needing to re-engineer our own Salesforce instance. And the decision was made while doing that to move off of the then decade plus old original Marketo instance for Marketo and move on to a new instance. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right skill set.
So you built the new Marketo instance that Adobe uses today?
Well, no. So through the acquisition, Marketo moved to its own new Marketo instance, which survived into the acquisition.
Okay.
At the time of acquisition, Adobe decided they needed their own Marketo instance. So then a whole new instance was set up that, yes, I was heavily involved in, Marketo Customer Zero, the MCZ instance of Marketo for Adobe. And
that's a pretty cool claim to fame, Paul. I mean, you just kind of brushed over that, but that's pretty awesome.
It's a great opportunity, and those that's what I'm saying. Those are those moments that I can't try to take any credit for. I happen to get those great opportunities. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
having kind of been on both sides, the consulting side, the client side, the vendor, that all of us know. You must have some unique perspectives that you've got from being on all of those different sides. Is there anything you can share with us? Like what was the biggest light bulb moment having been kind of full circle?
Yeah, I think there's two. One is what we do is hard. This is very difficult. There are no simple playbooks. A Marketo implementation is a blank whiteboard. It does not come preset. It isn't like HubSpot or some of the other systems that come with canned capabilities that are then limited. Marketo is an open slate. And the challenges that marketing operations teams face on a daily basis are technical complexity, data complexity, process complexity, and the marketers themselves sabotaging unintentionally everything that you're trying to curate and own and build. So the first thing is what we do is hard. And as professionals, I think we should enjoy the scars that we have. I think we should feel proud of the work that we've done because it's a difficult space that we're in. And the second is, having been in so many of the different angles of what the conversation is, agency side, customer side, vendor side, the patience that's needed to get to what is really important is, I think,
time.
is a very important part of the work, because you could hear a requirement and quickly say, I know exactly what has to happen. Go and build it and deploy it, and it's completely wrong. It's pushing through and really finding out what are you trying to make actually happen.
The business outcome, the value.
The complex nurture, all of those things. It's all about patience to go as far as you can and ask the really good questions to get all the information before you think you got it figured out.
Yeah, that's great. Great perspective and unique. I don't think there's that many people who have been in all of those places.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate to get to work together, having you as a Knak customer at a few different companies now. Can you maybe share, what were some of the challenges that you were facing at Slack and at OneTrust that made you think? Because although we knew each other from back in the day in Ottawa, we weren't, in super tight
That's right.
connection. And I remember one day Brendan told me, "Hey, I'm talking to Paul Wilson." I know that guy.
Right. So in those two examples, Slack and OneTrust, they're different, but they really, I think, do really highlight the strengths of Knak as a platform. At Slack, there was the acquisition and the move into Salesforce. So some of the back-end systems were probably going to adapt. So the idea of being able to use Knak as a persistent layer where marketers didn't need to worry so much about what was happening in the back end, which is very important when we start talking about OneTrust. But for Slack, that was a secondary element. But the main element was really facilitating that self-serve capability for marketers to generate assets on their own in an approval framework. And so it's easy to deploy the capability to let marketers build things. The conversation of whether or not you want to put them in that platform is a conversation for a different day. But yes, marketers are able to go and do something in a platform to make an email or a landing page exist. That is true. You can deploy that. But in specific, or particularly in larger organizations and enterprise organizations, getting the asset to exist is only 1/3 of the journey. Getting it to be properly reviewed, approved, and all of the minutia that goes back and forth related to that is another third. And then protecting and ensuring the brand compliance and the standards compliance is the other third. And so, yes, they can create an email, but that ignores the other parts of the work. And so for Slack, that was really the important components. And the capabilities of having Knak integrated in Slack was also great.
Yeah, we built that integration.
So that was important. For OneTrust, we had, when we started the journey with Knak, we had an existing set of 4 MarTech infrastructures. So we had, through acquisition, 2 HubSpots and a Marketo instance, and OneTrust on Eloqua. And so there were 4 complete MarTech infrastructures. And we were working through the effort to collapse those into one new Marketo instance. So deploying Knak allowed us to put that consistent layer of how to build a landing page and build an email, regardless of what system was going to actually deploy it. Marketers only needed to be trained once. And the ability to then deploy the approval framework and everything else was down the road. But the main thing for OneTrust was that capability of having that single panel and different systems in the background, because marketers were starting to market different brands. So they would have to know how to do an email in HubSpot and how to do an email in Eloqua. And so we didn't want to have to do that. One layer, and then they can deploy it wherever it had to go.
So every year we do our email benchmark study, which is a way for marketers to kind of be able to see how they measure up against their peers in terms of their open rates, click-throughs, unsubscribe. And one question we ask everybody is like, how are you building emails and landing pages? And I think it's still something like 70% of the marketers out there are using templates to build their emails and landing pages. As someone with experience using a creation platform like Knak, what would you say to those marketers who are still using templates?
They're rigid. They are stifling to an extent. You don't have the capability to be creative And that lack of the visual creativity being there means you're going to generate common feeling content very repeatedly. And as content goes stale, engagement goes stale. I think the ability to have an adaptive framework where brand standards can be respected, but you can still have creativity and influence on what is shown is great. And I think that the simple isn't always better. And having the capability and the flexibility that Knak provides is something that I don't think marketers really consider as part of the brand experience. They think of it as whether it's easy or hard for me to get an email out the door. What does that email look like? What is it going to feel like to receive? If it's the same template over and over again, I'm not reading your email. So the ability to infuse that creativity is going to mean that you're adapting, you're changing. The experience is going to change too. It's not always the same.
I love that. Another thing we hear a lot is marketers, using test emails or annotated PDFs as collaboration for building out assets. Again, I'd love just your perspective on what do you think marketers should be looking for when they're looking to collaborate in 2023?
Well, I think that's kind of a loaded question. First, I'm sure it's different in every organization.
Yeah.
So systems don't force collaboration. Systems facilitate collaboration. So we'll park the loaded question part of it depends on the organization. I think the capability of the collaboration and the way that it is incorporated into the discussion is what's critical. An annotated PDF is extra work down the road because when you look at it and you see, oh yeah, that's a good thought. Okay, I've got to go in here. I've got to do these things. Like you're in at least two platforms. Whereas if the commentary is adjacent, you can have more discussion. You can have immediately, well, do you mean it look like, should it look like this? You can really test faster and develop those assets better, I'd say.
And then lastly, maybe just to touch on the brand. You mentioned trying to have that one brand experience. As someone who's architecting the system to achieve that, how do you think about that and what's important to you there?
Yeah, I mean, OneTrust has just gone through, I alluded to the brands through acquisition. So we had a number of different brands. Those brands were brought into the OneTrust brand sort of the end of last year. And then we refreshed that one brand. So the ability to provide marketers with a set of drag and drop brand approved modules that ensures links are the right color, fonts are controlled the way that they need to be, color palettes are accessible and available, means we can deploy a broader set of brand standard capabilities for marketers to choose layouts that they feel will be most engaging for the content they're developing. It doesn't have to be that every webinar invite looks exactly the same. Every piece of nurture content looks the same. It allows for different teams to have different expressions of the brand that still fit within the brand guidelines.
Yeah.
Without them needing to ask for my team to generate another template in Marketo. We can give them the ability to have that flexibility themselves.
When you enable self-service as a marketing ops leader, what does that mean for the marketing ops team?
Right.
For you, for the people on your team? What does that mean? What does that give you?
There's really two core things that I see and I've seen through the years. The first thing is it takes my team out of the business of moving the and from the end of this sentence down to the start of the next one. Because a lot of the marketer feedback is based in opinion. It's, well, I don't really like the look of that. Can we try it this way? My team is trying to get emails shipped. We don't want to be in the period movement business. We need marketers to be able to do that on their own. So that's the first element. The second element is an offshoot of that is my team can then develop better enhanced nurture capabilities. We can build engines that are more adaptive to the behaviors we see so that we can tell the marketers, actually, you need a whole other nurture stream because there's this group of people who are kind of falling off that are still engaging. We can do more related to the email experience if we aren't busy making sure that the and moves from this down to there. So
Amazing.
those are the two things.
Yeah, it's amazing. I feel like you were at the beginning of the CRM kind of boom, if you call it that, the beginning of the marketing automation
Let
era.
me turn my hearing aid up here.
And I really think the way that you're setting your team up, your marketing ops team, to focus on those high value activities that they can do and empowering and delighting your marketers to do the marketing that they really want to do in the first place. It's amazing to see, and we're really excited to be part of that. And we have a session this week in a couple days with Don from Meta, which I'm looking forward to. And he talks a lot about delighting the marketer. And I think that's when you're saying, hey, they're not having to send emails to move words around and they're able to use their creativity. I think it's showing that you're delighting the marketers there too.
And we're looking forward to delighting more than just the marketers because the brand experience goes beyond just the marketing team. So that's been our core focus to date, but we're looking to extend that brand experience capability for other teams to self-serve, to develop content using Knak, so that the experience that you get with a OneTrust CSM, or the experience from a salesperson, or this experience of the look and feel of a support case, all of that, we're looking to extend those capabilities to ensure that that brand experience is consistent across all of those teams.
And for the people out there, why can you only do that with Knak?
Assuming you've watched this whole video, coming back to the content of the idea that, we had multiple marketing automation platforms and we wanted to deploy one layer for marketers to develop their content in, there's nothing stopping those from being salespeople or CSMs developing their content. And it's that same capability to ensure that they can be creative, but they can be creative within the guardrails of brand.
Right.
And then every email doesn't look the same. And I think that enhancing the extent of brand experience beyond just marketing means that brand feels deeper when it feels the same across those other teams.
I'd love to move on to our rapid fire questions. We ask every guest, so we can't let you off the hook there. So the first one is email dead.
No.
Leave it at that. What is one, where it's the unsubscribe podcast, so what's one marketing trend you would unsubscribe from?
I'm not going to blame marketing. It's the barrage of emails that I get from unknown people saying great things like, hey, Paul, I see we're in the same space. You breathe oxygen and I breathe oxygen. Can we have a time next Tuesday to
You're on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
That's right.
We should connect.
That's right. Unsubscribe.
Who's one person that you admire in the business community and why?
Well, peers, so I mean, I do. A little bit cheesy, but the Ottawa story, the way that you've developed your business, and the reputation of not only the Knak brand but Revenue Pulse to be a authentic, good company, not only just to work for, but the experience as customers. I mean, I gotta give you props for that.
I'm flattered. Thank
so
you.
I'll give
Thank
that.
you. Who is one other person that we should have on the Unsubscribe podcast?
That's a great one. I would say, and I'm going to embarrass myself by saying I don't know if you have or not had them, but Justin Norris.
I haven't had Justin, but yes, I know Justin, and he was you guys must have worked
together
at
Marketo
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have Justin on.
Now, if you can arrange to take Justin to breakfast in Montreal and do the recording there, I guarantee it'll be even better.
Okay, try that out. Paul, I've loved this conversation. We covered a lot of ground there, starting off with the Adobe Summit, which is where we are right now, some of the highlights from the keynote. We talked about AI and how people can get started, how they can think about that, how AI can be that trusted co-pilot.
Right.
It was super interesting to hear just your career progression and all the amazing experiences you've had at Marketo and Adobe and Salesforce. And I loved hearing about how our customers use Knak and how it's helping them at their companies. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a visionary in the marketing ops space.
I can talk about this all day long. This was great.
It was awesome.
Like I said, this is long overdue.
Yeah, and this is our first episode ever in person, and it's way better than a Zoom. I gotta say that. Yeah. Awesome. So thanks so much. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Unsubscribed, a podcast created by Knak. If you enjoyed this episode of Unsubscribed, be sure to subscribe to my podcast and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. If you have any feedback or want to chat, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter at marketing_101. Cheers.